On today's episode of Gimbal, we are talking with Rich Cardona, the longtime producer for the iconic creator Chris Do. On this episode, we are speaking with him about launching a podcast because guess what? That's exactly what we're doing. And he has a ton of experience working with both experienced podcasts and inexperienced podcasts. And he's going to be sharing a ton of knowledge about what expectations to set for yourself and how to win as a brand new podcast. This is a great episode, and thank you for clicking and sticking around. Let's get into the interview. You're the longtime podcast producer for Chris Do.
Yeah.
Is that the right way of
It's been a year and a half, but I've known him for quite some time. He is I guess technically still my business coach. So when he brought us on, I was kind of like ecstatic because he knows like all the skeletons in our closet, and he still took us on, which is great. So yes, but I've helped him and a few others.
That's interesting. So he was a coach for you first. What was he coaching you in?
Business.
Okay.
like just all facets. I mean, it's hilarious, but sales, negotiation, like what moves to make. I mean, but the thing about him, I was thinking about him last night because he's like, you should come out to Future Fest. He has the Future and it's October something. You should go to it, Alina, for sure.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So I might, but like he is the least judgmental person, with someone who has a following like he does, with a reputation like he does, and hears all the same questions all the times that he does. Like he is extraordinarily just lacks that part, which is just to judge people wrongly. He never makes you feel bad. Even if I've come back to him with the same problem 2 years in a row, whether it was like ending a client relationship in the wrong way or something like that, and then I do it again, like he's never like, we talked about this, like how could you make that mistake again? It's never been that way. So that is probably the most invaluable thing about his coaching, is that you could go into it and just be, he's truly invested in you, which is really, really hard to do when he talks to as many people as he does.
Sure. So he did some coaching for you, but now you do some work for him. Is that kind of like a surreal thing for you that you're like a big collaborator in his enterprise now?
Yeah, I mean, so we were doing audio only for his podcast, and we took on YouTube for him. And YouTube for him is different than YouTube with other people. And I mean, I know you guys, I mean, it was particular and it was challenging, and it was 8 hours of sitting on YouTube Studio after it was published and trying to figure things out and all those things. And we just don't typically have to do that with like not new stage, but founders who are new to podcasting. It's just kind of like, we're like just getting the reps, looking for consistency. For this, it had to be like very calculated, very detailed. It's competing with his normal business content, which of course towers over all the podcast content. And that's actually something that's been surfacing a lot in a lot of conversations with people coming to us like, hey, like, do I have my podcast on the same channel or not, or what? And it's like, it's really interesting. The podcasts on people's channels, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of going another direction, but the podcasts on certain people's channels like truly can kill their channel.
I'm so glad you bring this up because I've had this conversation with so many strategists.
Oh my gosh.
And nobody is really on the same page. So you're saying,
but that's the thing.
Do not put your podcast on the same main channel.
We've removed podcasts from his page, and we've alleviated ourselves of that responsibility. And I'm literally not complaining about it. Like audio only is so much less friction and so many less booby traps. But so he part of his strategy, or our strategy collectively, is like, we do got to put some out though. Like, so if he has like Jefferson Fisher or Mark or anything like that, Mark Manson, stuff like that, they're like, yes, of course we're going to make the video. You know what I mean? Like we should, not only because it's good to, but because they probably have a substantial audience as well and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I have 3 clients who we're like, we need to go to another channel, like tomorrow. Like, this is kind of crazy. Like, you have a better chance of reaching people organically than YouTube being like, you're confusing us because you have these podcasts and then you also have this content. So, you know what? We're not showing your shit to anyone anytime. Bye. Like, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. I was talking to Patty Galloway's strategist about this recently because there's been a big there's been a rush of momentum of everybody, filming their podcast now. So it's a video podcast, and then they're putting it on, where do we put it on YouTube? Well, we're going to put it on the main channel. And the argument for the other side that I've heard so far has been, well, my main channel has a couple million subscribers. If I put it there, my podcast episode might be a 10 out of 10 on YouTube Studio, but it's going to get more views than if I put it on a fresh channel. And I hear that side of the argument, but I think it crushes the other like talking head videos or any other kind of videos that you might have on that main channel, because like you said, it confuses the algorithm and it doesn't want to promote anything anymore.
I think this is especially true when it comes to interviews. What we've learned in serving a lot of the future listeners and all that is like almost no one wants to hear other people, which is kind of crazy. Like Chris is a teacher. And he's a very good teacher, and he's really philosophical, and he's very contrarian and all that. So it's like, even when we switched the intros to not being a snippet of something the guest said, and we just had Chris do the pickup instead, like, wow, like people are staying on longer. Like, it's ridiculous. They're not dropping off as fast. So that's one thing we've noticed. So I would say for interviews, that's really important. Yeah, like, do you want the 10 out of 10 and the average viewer duration of 2 minutes and 59 seconds for a 50-minute podcast? Like, I don't think you do.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying? So like, I look at it that way, and that at the same time, if you do have a captive audience, it potentially can work. And I do know I have friends in the industry and a couple other people who are doing phenomenally well, but the podcast is the centerpiece of their channel, and the YouTube ones are kind of like the whatever exception to the rule, I would say.
Okay, you touched on something interesting about Chris being the top of show voice or doing like a little snippet for interviews. I think it's super popular and sexy right now, like to do the Diary of a CEO style intro. What's your take on this?
I think that
is that the way to go?
No, not if you're trying to break in. I would say if you have an established audience and you want to leave them on a cliffhanger and open a bunch of loops and not close the loops, like, I'm sure that's cool. But it's like everything gets played out, Like, I mean, the Hormozy style of short form content like came and went, and now it's like, forget it. Like, no one wants that. So I think I have a feeling it's the same as Diary of a CEO. Like, they really capitalized on the resources they have and how to make something super sexy, but they also have a ridiculous budget to test out a zillion thumbnails, and all this other stuff, and put Facebook ads on like certain clips to see if they'll actually perform. It's like crazy that they do that. But like for us right here, the three of us, like, we could probably get a couple cool sound bites at the beginning, but does that mean people are going to be on the edge of their seats? Like, I'm going to listen to this right now. I'm not taking that meeting because I'm listening to this. Like, I don't think so. So I think it's better to just like allow people to get to know you and like feel like you're, I don't know, just like you're catching up, like, which is exactly what I know you're kind of going for. Like, just the casual nature of a podcast, I think, is probably what people should be aiming for, but as long as it's still always focused on moving towards what you said you were going to give the listeners.
Right. We have this thing in the YouTube side of things. So I come from like a video making background more than a podcasting background. And there's this invisible metric called time to value. And it's the moment from the start of the video to the first piece of value that was promised in the video's packaging. So is that something that applies to podcasting as well? Like, if the podcast title features, some kind of clever hook or something like that, do you want to get into that right away? Is there room for casual banter? You've already kind of given your stance on the Diary of a CEO entry. What's the right intro here?
I have a couple of opinions on this, but if someone, let's start on short form first, and then I'll kind of give my opinion on the long form. If I'm making a short form video on the top 5 things you need to do in order to start a podcast successfully, I should probably not do what everyone else does, which is like, and you're going to want to stay around to the 5th because that's the most important.
I hate that. Yeah.
You should just make number 1 the banger. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, just do that.
Awesome.
I believe the people will be more compelled to listen to the non-sexier ones, but like, you probably just increase your watch time by like fulfilling it. So I completely agree with you on time to value. So like, just do it then. I think on the podcast, it's the same. And I've been really, really wanting to experiment that, on just getting into the deeper part of the conversation, revealing either the interview's expertise or Chris's take on something if it's him, or Arjun if it's mortgage, like whatever it is, like kill on that like at first. And I think then you could kind of trickle down into, by the way, like let's just talk about Olina. I know we hit the ground running, but let's talk a little bit about your past and how you actually ended up here versus starting with, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you, which will immediately tank a lot because you just never know what they're going to say. So the stance is mildly different for long form and short form, but I would just say don't hide anything. Just give everything you can as soon as you can. And that does not mean that the episode has to be 30 minutes because you have a guest on, or an hour. I mean, it could be 30 minutes and that's literally enough. Like, don't just go for what you think you need to continue going for.
That's another thing that we're kind of experimenting right now with this show is like, how long is the right length? And we're thinking, if we're a relatively new show, maybe shorter episodes are better because people might be willing to trust you with 20 minutes at a time, but might not be willing to trust you with 75 minutes at a time if they don't know who you are.
Yep. I am inclined to agree. I think I always like the sitcom statistic, which is like a sitcom is like 22 minutes. And if anyone is not old like me and you don't know what that means, is like, when Modern Family was on TV, it's like 22 total minutes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like 22 total. So I say somewhere around there. But so podcasting, about 3 years ago, the average listener duration, even with outliers like Rogan's and stuff like that, was like 47-ish minutes. And then I think it got down to low 40s, and then it got into the 30s very recently. So there's a podcast expert I know. He's totally old school, and he goes, everyone always asks, like, how long should my podcast be? And he goes, I say the same thing every time, shorter than your last one. And I'm kind of like in that camp, man, like not shorter every time, but like shorter is better. And I just think it makes us more effective communicators, unless like I'm interviewing, like a dream interview of mine would be like Jimmy Fallon. Like I would try and make sure that thing never ends for my own selfish desires. You know what I'm saying? But otherwise, like, yeah, man, like keep it. I think you guys are on the right. So we're 13 minutes in. We got to wrap it up in about 9 minutes. So anyway, but like, yeah, but keep it short and just get to the value and only provide what's needed. I just think that's what it's like. And to your point about the 20 minutes, if they trust you with 20 minutes, they might actually trust you with 40 if they got a longer drive or if they're working out or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially if you have a backlog and you're like, and don't forget to catch the next episode on blank, blank, blank. Or if you missed last week, I actually covered this, this, and this. So it's like, if you transition that pretty well and people are listening towards the end, like you might have just got double what someone might have listened to versus half if it was a longer episode.
It's funny. You're describing like a lot of the same things that apply in YouTube education, which is where I spend my entire life, like just making YouTube talking head videos and stuff like that. Having a strong CTA that drives somebody to another video, or in this case, it would be another podcast episode. Is this something that's new as of like the last 12 months because of the emergence of video podcasts and everything? YouTube is a great place for discovery now, whereas podcast prior was like, it's all word of mouth. Are all these tactics new?
No, I mean, it's still very, very heavily word of mouth. So for like any launch plans that we have, so we have like a 4-week launch prior to like we even do a trailer, and a lot of that actually involves determining that founder or that host like people groups, right? So like business acquaintances, former employers or employees, like who they went to school with, and then like obviously friends and family, which is like, like you do it just because they'll support you, but that's not necessarily going to help your podcast or your show or anything like that, unless your parents are really into your stuff, of course, but probably not. But and what we do is like, look, like this is not like a mass email to these groups. Like spend an hour, or two this week on this friend group texting them, and like make it like way personal, like a voice message. Like, Devin, I know it's been a couple months since I was on your podcast, but I finally, got back in the saddle myself, and I actually think you'll enjoy this because blank. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is. And you might actually hate it. That's fine too. Like, I'm down for the feedback, but I at least wanted to tell you about it. I'm going to text you a link with it on the day it's released if you're good with that. Like,
how
maybe,
many people
maybe
are you
not.
sending a customized message like that to?
Oh, yeah. How many?
Yeah.
As many as it takes, man. Like, I mean, as many as you're willing. And that's kind of what I see. I know that sounds like insane and old school, but these are people you know, so it's not the same feel as like if you're like cold calling people to become clients of your agency. So it's like, okay, I see. And we had a launch with a gentleman local here in Wilmington, and he was like pretty on it, and he had a fantastic launch. Like, it was just like, he was so happy at how much support he got. Now, I always have to mentally prepare people for the drop off, because it's like, cool, like, we supported you. Sure. People are like, we did our part. But if there's something good enough, then obviously those people could be like, hey, you guys should check this out, you know, and that's all you're hoping to do. So word of mouth is still very much a part of it, I would say. And then as far as like the rest, it's true. I mean, it's true about YouTube. Discovery is like in the high 60s on YouTube versus, I mean, it towers over Spotify and Apple. And I think, Aline, I don't know if we talked about this before, but like, no one's scrolling on Apple and being like, I hope I find a good podcast.
Yeah, never once. I've never ever done that.
Never ever. So like, you know what I mean? That's why it's word of mouth though, Devin, because like people, it's never a mistake when someone types in your name to go to a podcast. Like, it's super intentional. So you got to cover your bases in a lot of ways, but I do believe that personal touch might lead to more word of mouth. That's a belief. I could only substantiate it in a couple instances, but the other people I've kind of suggested this specific launch plan, they just really didn't do it. They didn't do a lot of that work. So
when people come to you as a client and they say, hey, help me launch this podcast, do you think that they're mostly well equipped for the journey? Like, I feel like it's a pretty long road to success. Do people realize that? Do you have to convince them, like, hey, this is going to take X number of episodes before anything really substantial starts to happen? Or are you the secret sauce that gets them success sooner?
I would actually like to kick that question back to you. I'd love to know what you say, because I know in your world, expectations are ridiculously high and people get super emotional and they have conviction and charisma and they're ready. And then like next thing you know, you're probably waiting on them to have recorded something and you're like, hey, like, come on, like, send me that thing. So I'd like to hear your take first. And of course I'll go, but like, I know it's super tough in your industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy named Caleb Ralston who's kind of emerging as the top strategist in the space right now.
Yeah, he's a good friend.
He recently put out... Oh, you like him? You know him? Okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah, he recently said on a podcast that you have to have, I think, 36 months of a runtime without any dollar expectation coming back. That's definitely longer than I expected. That's insanely long.
Yes.
I mean, I guess if you have your benchmark set that far out, success is pretty likely if you're able to stick it out for that long.
Yes.
It's tough though, because like Mr. Beast also says, make 100 videos, and then if you still stink or you don't like it anymore, then you can quit. Making 100 videos and getting 1% better every single video is really, really challenging. And
hell yeah.
I don't know if people realize that when they first get involved. I think people see the success of someone they admire and they say, oh, I can just do that myself.
Yes.
And then they make 8 or 9 videos and they're like, well, the algorithm did this to me. It's not me. I made great content.
So I would fall into that camp, I gave it a really good push and then I just stopped, and the next year I'm like, no, seriously, this year, you know, and then I'm like, F this sucks. I think it's the same way in podcasting. I think people underestimate the amount of time and actual effort it takes. Like, even, and we do a lot of done for you everything, but like, I can't record it for you and I can't write the episode for you, and if I do, I'm just gonna have to be transparent and be like, I just put this thing in Claude or ChatGPT based off our transcript and here you go. You know, which no one wants to hear. I think the same on the YouTube side or whatever. It's like, you just have to really, really, really pay attention to the platform and do a lot more, I would say, examining of like what's working, why it's not, or why this thumbnail took off, or why people are dropping off all the time in this particular part of the podcast or whatever. So the returns are outsized though, for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know anyone who's done it for like 2+ years that we've worked with that has not seen significant change. And like, I have some guys in Cincinnati right now who did a year. They were cold, man, like cold, meaning like no social, no nothing, and we do it all for them. And I was like, dude, every month I'm like, freak, man, like, this is probably the month. like that they're going to be like, it's been awesome, but no.
Yeah.
And they were very much okay with the fact that it was brand awareness. At the end of a year, we looked at everything. I'm like, you guys should just really just start having potential clients on your show. And making this a client acquisition machine, because I think you're now well positioned, even though the numbers necessarily weren't there. Like, people know about you guys now. You've been getting DMs. You've been at a couple conferences. You've promoted the podcast. Like, you don't have a podcast named what yours is, unless you're a true expert and willing to position yourself like that. So why don't you have other experts on, especially with bigger brands that they work with, a lot of brands in the food and beverage industry that you can't necessarily usually get to. And 5 weeks into it, they're like, we closed 3 people. These are dream clients. And I'm like,
right.
So it was the platform. It was the sharing of the expertise. It was the fact that, I have to take a little bit of credit here. We try and provide a really, really good guest experience. You know what I mean? Stay in touch with them, let them know when it's coming out, on the day of, getting them links, sending them files that they could already use. And they're just like, whoa, so there's that, you can, but the bottom line is, here's the true litmus test. This is our new qualifier for discovery calls. Do you like to teach? Because we usually work with people in business who like to educate. Do you like to teach? And are you really emphatic about making sure, so-and-so, your ideal listener or viewer, gets that information? Because if so, you're probably less likely to quit. You through the repetitions of content will discover what people actually want. And you could just make those kind of mini pivots, as long as it's still under the same umbrella of business or whatever the subject matter is. If you do that, then that's cool. But if it's a podcast by proxy, meaning Lena's hey, Mark, you should start a podcast, and it was never on his mind, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work, because it's not your idea. You're just I guess I got to have more this as part of my marketing arm, and it's just dude, fuck that. It's no one likes that. Those never end well.
Is there a threshold of numbers that you speak to new clients about, saying, hey, you got to make at least this many numbers before you give up on me, or something like that? Or you gauge hey, are you ready to make this many episodes before you really see any kind of return?
I try and talk people out of podcasting when they come to us, and I say everything is working against you. You know what I mean? This, and then I just watch sometimes I watch their face go from dang to I could do that though. And then some who are just I'm so glad I'm decided to talk to you, because I'm definitely not starting a podcast.
Right.
So once that's clear, I would say I always try and manage expectations, be nothing might happen for this long. And I want to know if you're going to be comfortable knowing that this episode that you worked so hard on got 35 listens or downloads. And that doesn't even mean that people listen to those 35. But over time, this is how things would look. And we try and go for 10 to 15% month over month growth in terms of downloads. But, we look at everything else, consumption and all that kind of stuff. And we just do what we do. But I make zero, I put no time in trying to glaze over how crappy it could be. I just give it. I'm here it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works perfectly for me to identify who we don't want to work with, and then who we do.
I've had similar conversations with cousins of mine who are oh, I think I'm going to be an Instagram influencer. And I'm okay, are you ready to make it your full-time job and say no to going out on weekends because you need to edit a video that needs to go live on Monday?
Yes.
And they're oh, wait, that's
brutal.
What it is. That's not what it looks like. I'm oh, that's
brutal.
what it is, unless you're a Kardashian.
Yep.
How often do you change your strategy?
So Tom Bilyeu, had this thing a few years ago that I listened to, and I tried to adopt as good as possible, called the physics of progress. And basically it's a fancy way of just talking about isolating variables. You can never be trying to correct 2 variables at once. You have to focus on one. Now, the 3 of us know that if we're working with clients, that's damn near impossible. No one is going to be okay, we'll only think about consumption for the next 6 months, and a truly good sample size. or we'll truly just focus on titles and SEO and whatever, which is ridiculously hard to kind of manage anyway. So changes in strategy are, I would say, few and far between, because like I just like to collect as much data as possible. So like we just had a client who hit episode 29, but like we're waiting for it to get to the end of that week, so that way the 25 episodes that we've done, we have 30-day data on all of them. That's a good sample size. 50's better. I almost gave up on a podcast I had a few years ago. I mean, I eventually stopped because of something else, but like at 50 something, I was like ready to be like, it's over. Like this, and then I landed like these 3 mammoth guests, and I was just like, okay, like that wouldn't have happened if I didn't demonstrate to some of these people the consistency. So like that's part of it as well. Like you got to factor that in. Like people are going to take you more seriously if you've been consistent, and you might get that guest that's harder to reach because they know how often people quit podcasts. So in terms of strategy, though, to be a little bit more clear, because I felt like I skirted that a little bit. It's like not often. You just can't. Like you just can't. Like I'm more on the side of, do you feel like you're a better host than you were 2 months ago? Do you feel like your transitions are better? Do you feel like you ask better questions? Do you feel like you're down to research? Do you feel the same nerves that you had? Blah, 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 whatever. Like that's to me like the critical, underrated, no one talks about intangible that could definitely mean the difference between success and no success. Because I think when it comes to strategy, like, look, there's no one I know that's an expert in this industry that's saying something massively freaking different. Like when it comes to like the tactics of podcasting and the strategy, it's like, all right, like you could always say it depends on the client, but other than that, like all the stuff's the same. We all have access to the same information, data, and can make the same kind of like, I don't know, hypotheses, so to speak. So I would say there's just not a lot. It just truly comes down to the person, Alina. And I think the most important part is like, if they truly enjoy creating, those people usually have the best opportunities, and they weren't actually seeking them as much. It's just, I don't know, that's been the experience I've seen.
It sounds like it's not about changing your strategy, it's just improving.
Yeah, I really think that's it. If I were going to give you a ridiculously corny fitness analogy, for example, like a few months ago, like I switched to like doing total body, during the week instead of doing legs one day and arm and back one day. Like I just got tired of it. So it's like I'm improving, and the overall strategies, it's slightly different, but like at the end of the week, all the same things were worked out. Some just a little bit more than others. And it's just like that to me makes it so much more sustainable. I actually look forward to it now, and I'm like, cool. Like I don't have to do a whole day of stupid leg work. Like no one wants to do that. But if it's like here and then next day a little bit and whatever, it's like, oh, I could do this. So yeah, I think it's the path to improvement. And if they're not energized by that improvement, then that's obviously a tell as well. If there's no strategy that needs to be had, you just need to hang up the mic.
Gosh.
Does this change when you're working with like a bigger creator like Chris, for example?
Bigger creators pay attention so much more than like mid-level creators. They're so hungry for the audience, because they just realize at scale like what that could do for them. Like if they were able to reach this many people in the last few years doing XYZ, and then they look at a podcast and they put that into the fold, they'll look at it super heavily, but they're looking at everything heavily. They'll notice things like how many DMs they're getting per day. Like some of these people with millions of followers, but like they could keep track and it'd be like, whoa, like that wasn't that great. But they're looking at all the things. Like they're thinking about hooks. They're thinking about opportunities. They're just always thinking about it, I guess, is the best way to answer that question on just like a totally different level than like someone like me who's just like trying to like make sure I put something out like a couple times a week, So I would say they pay attention just in a whole.
I mean, there's a
way.
thing. Ali Abdaal says, "Get going, then get good," and that seems to be kind of like a good message for this episode right now, because when you're talking about these big creators, they're focused on getting good, but I think a lot of the time it's really just about getting going. This is episode 39 for us.
Yeah.
You know, that feels like a long time, but it's still actually not a long time.
It's
you look at the number of episodes that any popular podcast has, they're often 400, 500 episodes.
Yeah.
So we are really just getting started.
Yeah.
And then once we do get, you know, a number of episodes under our belt, we can kind of finesse little tiny details here and there.
For me, is if I show up and say a few words, that's a win.
Yeah, Alina. Alina, you got so much value to share, honestly. And if this were just a normal conversation and it wasn't being recorded, we may have a different tone and vibe and cadence, and we'd be talking about silly things and laughing. And then
talking about feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
What the heck is this about feet? You guys have been talking about feet pics and all these other kind of things and starting a new business together.
I was joking with her that I was having a bad month revenue-wise, I think, or something like that. And I said, like, it's probably time to start considering feet pics. And I think she thought I was serious. Actually, I'll still let her believe that, you know, there's a possibility I am doing that on the side. But Alina, here's how you could get, how you can not get shy when it starts recording is like, Devin, just start recording before we're actually recording. Like, right. I always find that to be the best. And I'll tell you for sure, oh my gosh, especially with Chris, like as soon as we're done recording, the other person usually is like...
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
You know what I'm saying? Like deflated and less performy and less like, I'm on a podcast right now. Like, and then I'm like, I always am.
That's the moment that like is the best part of the whole podcast. As soon as you stop recording.
Of course. Like, it's just weird, man. But yeah, so.
That literally happened when Chris was doing the episode with Mark.
Yeah.
We shut off the camera and then like the real talk started happening and he was just like, why did we turn off the mics?
Yeah. I mean, after Tom, like, so Chris and Tom Bill, you had a podcast a few months ago, or, you know, at the beginning of the year, I think. And, you know, we're there and it's going super well. But then, like, the end is, like, so good. Like, they started geeking out on, like, anime and comic books and stuff. And, like maybe that's not appealing to the listener, but it was just kind of like there was a little bit of a veil that was removed, at least for Tom. I could tell, like, you know, I could just tell. And that's, I just think that's so important that if there's anything I can encourage podcasters out there to do, it's like I always say to just research as much as you can because it will literally never fail you. And part of that probably includes to seeing like some of the podcasts your guests might have been on in the last 6 months and avoid at all costs the questions everyone else has already asked them. Because then it's just going to come across the same as everyone else. Like you're literally not providing any value to them as a guest. Like you're just asking them what they know to say. So instead, it's like look for like the threads that no one really pulled on because they were so focused on getting the next question, you know? And if I wish I could give an example.
I love when Sean Evans does that on Hot Ones or like Nardwar. Good. Are you familiar with Nardwar? They just pull these questions out of nowhere and just make the guest feel so impressed. Yeah, Nardwar's great.
He is like...
Do you know Nardwar?
Oh yeah, dude. Like he is like so up there. I live for the reactions that people have when they see how far he's gone into it. There's another guy, his name is Kevin McCarthy. I pitched him to do his podcast. He is a interview celebrities and he's a movie geek. And I have seen so many times on his Instagram where like Anne Hathaway or Brad Pitt or someone's like, that was such a good question. And you know they meant it. Or like you could see they're wrapping up the interview and because it's like a press, I guess junket is what they call it. You know, they're just like going through people and they're like, no, this guy gets a few more minutes. And I'm like, because the research will never fail you, man. It's like, dude, people want to talk about new and different things, not just what they're always asked about. So, I think that is probably going to be one of the most. It is the biggest way to differentiate yourself. And I mean, I've actually to the point where you could even send some questions in advance, and just it's risky, you know what I mean? Like, but you could send some like. They could just make content with those, but you could be like, here's like where I'm trying to go, not here. And they might be like, let's do this thing.
That's interesting. Like putting out some really clever questions as like a cold outreach to try and rope someone into coming on your show that maybe is above your weight class.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very. Nice. It's very effective. I'm telling you.
Yeah, right. Cool. Who is doing something unique and cool in your space that you admire?
I actually think she's very, very, very well known already, but I think Mel Robbins is approaching her podcast really, really well. And I actually was just with her head of social media the other day. He's a friend of mine, and he was kind of talking to me about some of the things. Now, look, like, I understand people like her have teams and have access and their own studio, and they can fly guests out and all those things. But like, one thing that he mentioned that I absolutely notice when I listen to her from time to time is she's absolutely obsessive about distilling the information down to who she knows her listeners are. So she won't let like a neuroscientist get away with like something super awesome and clever and useful without like really being like, this is for Rich, who, is a retired Marine, not the brightest, light on the stand or whatever. Like, talk to him, like, she'll say that, but for her women.
Right,
and
right,
who
right.
are obviously make up her audience. And I think that is the best thing you can do to have like true fans. Like, she just demonstrates always that she's thinking about them. It's never just about getting through the interview. It's never about the next question. Yes, of course, she's looking for good knowledge. And then she also will put herself in those situations like, well, if I was doing that, like, there's 10, there's 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't do blank, 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 and probably some of that's totally legitimate. And probably some of that is like what her people would say as well. And you could just imagine them like nodding or listening and being like, oh my gosh. So I think that's not anything super crazy, but I just don't think enough podcasters do that. It's really hard to get kind of crazy with podcasts, so to speak. Like how you don't know a podcast that has gone viral, so to speak. Maybe recently the Taylor Swift on New Heights, but like, that's different. That's Taylor Swift. So, but yeah, it's really hard to stand out. So I think, just creating an amazing guest experience and just like always paying attention to your listener, like in some way, shape or form, acknowledging them is like probably the smartest thing you can do.
We did a deep dive on Mel Robbins one time, and
nice.
I was just so impressed with the way that she describes herself. Like, the way that she speaks to her audience is very similar to what you just described.
Yeah.
It's like she says, hey, it's your friend, Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
And she acknowledges the listener. You are probably feeling this way. You are probably feeling this way. That was like 2 of the key takeaways, was just it like the parasocial relationship between her and her listeners are so obvious because she knows who they are so well.
Totally. So yeah, I think that is what sticks out the most to me, for sure.
Nice.
Because it's
Study the greats.
It's infrequent.
Study the greats. She's one of them.
Yeah.
Very cool. Rich, thank you so much for being on the show. I will now do the noble task of stopping the recording, which will probably prompt an incredible conversation immediately after it. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with your new feet pics business with Aluna.
Yes. Thanks.
Only feet.
Appreciate you guys.
Only feet.